Big Benedicto, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. I've got someone to call the roll here. Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michael Martinez. I'll be calling out the roll today.
Michael,
Come on up here.
you can come on right here, Michael.
We have Chairman Lowe,
Here.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Here.
Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Anthony,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson. So are at least 3 members present today?
Yes.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
All righty. You have before you the agenda. Any additions, subtractions? If not, I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and properly second for the approval of the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none. Would like to have a motion to table the minutes until next month's meeting.
Motion to table the minutes until our next month meeting.
Second.
Been moved and properly second that we table the minutes until next month's meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none. I don't have any cards for public participation, so Director Benedicto.
All right, thank you, Chairman. So we'll get right into the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 report. Ms. Jackson, if you'll come up front and share the report with the board.
Good morning.
Good
morning.
Good morning, Chairman Lowe and Commissioners, Ms. Benedicto. The HCV voucher report, we have 2,913 that's baseline. On the program, we have 2,473 that's leased. That's an 85% voucher utilized. For the mainstream vouchers, we have 156 vouchers that are allocated, 103 that are leased. We have started pulling from the wait list. We now have 5 issued and searching for the mainstream, 66 vouchers utilized. Elm Street, we have 52 that are allocated, 39 that are leased. That's a 75% utilized rate. We have started receiving referrals for those at Elm Street. I have 4 referrals for those, 2 that are processing, waiting on background checks at this point. We have the emergency housing voucher program. We have 96 that are allocated, 44 leased, 46% utilized. We have 56 issued and searching. We have 30 currently on the waiting list for that program. The foster youth to independence, we have 25 allocated vouchers, 12 leased, 48% vouchers utilized. We have 8 issued and searching.
I guess, Ms. Jackson, as I look at the utilization, especially in the category of the emergency housing vouchers and the foster youth, which are some categories that you would think that there would be a higher percentage of utilization, recognizing that, you know, it's slim pickings out there.
Yes, ma'am.
How do we encourage those numbers?
Well, with those numbers, we have to work, we need to start working more closely with the agencies that are sending the referrals. Because once we issue the vouchers, it's normally up to the tenants to find a place. We do have a listing that we put out. It's not very up to date because on that listing, you have to have the landlords that tell us the properties to call us and say when these properties are leased or if they've rented them to someone that doesn't have a voucher, so we can remove them from the list. So normally we're running behind, playing catch up on updating our list and everything. We have a lot of apartment complexes that are dropping off of the program. So I would say just staying on top of the vouchers that are issued, communicating with the COC programs and DHS, because DHS is the one that sends the referrals for the foster youth.
So when we're sending foster youth, we're talking about 18 to 21?
18 to 25.
But my question is, what are we doing to bump up to that 92% rate so that HUD can release that $2.5 million that they holding for us?
Yeah.
So we can get that one up, we went back to just the regular HCV. We had 990 on the wait list, we pulled 400 off, we're working on those. We've actually got all the background checks in, by next week we should have people coming in to pick up vouchers. With that total, we still have 590 that are left on the, waiting list, anticipating pulling the rest of those 590 off, sometime
Is
in
that the
September.
total that's on the waiting list?
590 is what's left.
It's about time to open it up.
Yes, but we can't open it up until we deplete it.
Right, till it's been exhausted, or near
Yeah, it's
exhausted.
exhausted.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I again, I have a front row seat to seeing what happens in some of those situations. And I'm finding that, especially with our young folk, they don't have the how-tos. They don't. I mean, really, they don't have the how-tos of getting from point A to point B. So I know we talked the last time that we were no longer doing the briefings because of COVID. But I just, you know, they need something, the young folk as well as just the folks who are out there with the vouchers. Cause, you know, some of us are getting inundated from the crisis that's going on with big country and those folks who have vouchers. But, it's a trauma out there right now when there are places that have some spaces, yet we can't make the connection with the folks who need spaces. So I just think that there should be, we probably need to have some offline, more discussion.
Yes, ma'am, and I do want to add, with the briefings, we went ahead and had to purchase and upgrade our briefing video. It was quite outdated, so that has come in. And in terms of the emergency housing voucher, of course, I have Tracy Shine here, so that we could better work together with the continuous of care to get those numbers up. We had a very candid meeting last week about what some of the barriers have been, and apparently they've been longstanding barriers with communication and coordination between the continuous of care and the agency. And so I've been invited to come out and speak to the catch members, the continuous of care on tomorrow at 9 o'clock to improve the communication, because that's critical for EHV to get those referrals. So we are working aggressively, and of course I've got Ms. Shine here, if you all wanted to hear from her on that.
Well, also too, I think the distinction needs to be made with those emergency housing vouchers, that there are extra money available, money for down payment, money for us to look for apartments, because that's the only voucher that we can do that with. Money to help with down payment assistance, money to help with utilities. These vouchers are totally different from any other category of vouchers that we deal with. So I think as part of the messaging and education, not only the tenants, but the landlord needs to know that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something that, you know, a lot of people who normally did this stuff have moved on to other places and went there when a lot of the history, some of it's good, some of it's bad. But those folks who are now on the playing field, and I'm glad that Tracy is here today, we need to do a better job of networking and talking about what the problem is, because that 85%, we need 92, 94.
And these 92.
To actually be decent, and when the need is there, that's the issue. The need is there,
Absolutely.
and there are some spots. Now, in addition to that, Tracy, I know that there is a lot of folks who are on voucher who are getting hit with eviction, and it's because of what I see has been the misdetermination of what the moratorium on eviction was during the COVID period, where people came into an understanding or their own understanding that they didn't have to pay rent. And now our courts are full of evictions. So how is that impacting our Section 8? Because there are so many people who are being hit with eviction who are going to lose subsidy because of the eviction.
well, with those vouchers that, the clients that are being hit with those evictions, we're normally we're basically just, those tenants are being reissued those vouchers to go out to look for a different unit. And that's because in that reg that, HUD had put out, that if it's not a legal eviction, we can't terminate that voucher,
What's a legal eviction?
where it has to go through the court
Go to
system.
court process.
It has to go through the court
Recording in
process.
progress.
It has to have a judgment for the landlord
Mhm.
in order for us to terminate that tenant's
And
voucher.
there's no telling how long that'll take.
Well, that's a
But,
judgment, that's a
but a
judgment
lot of them
for
are
eviction.
going through court.
Yes,
A lot
and
of them are going
so,
through court.
once we get those evictions, even if we've issued a voucher and let that client move on, once we receive that legal eviction, we can then terminate that voucher or give them the option to work with that landlord as far as repayment to pay them back. And if they miss a payment, then we can terminate those vouchers.
Wait a minute, let's go back to the repayment with the land. Talk to me about that.
So when you,
Like I said,
when you take them to court and the judge files for that legal eviction, we have the option to terminate. But we do try to work with the landlords to see if they'll do a repayment with those clients instead of having those clients homeless. But then we have to stay, the landlord has to stay on top of it. If they don't do those repayments, notifying the agency, so then at that point, we could terminate the tenant.
And see, in addition to that, you may have a judge who tells the landlord to work with this tenant. We'll tell the landlord, we've had cases like that where we went in and wanted to evict somebody and they were hiding back rent. Judge said, no, set up a payment plan, but that was court ordered though. So you may run into those instances like that.
Yeah, but they do put some stipulations on the tenant in those
Mhm,
cases.
mhm.
And we've had some judges that have recused themselves because they don't want to deal with the whole process
Right.
of eviction because they don't believe in it. But there's a lot of situations out there that are going on that you know, tenants don't really realize that they do lose their subsidy. Whether they abscond, you know, just skip out, or whether it's something that people take in court. And certainly that's one of the things on the CAAC side, we're trying to educate folks that if we have to take you to court, you could lose your voucher.
That's it, right. Two-parter. First question. Do we know what the numbers for each RAD amp is for choice mobility vouchers?
No, we'll have to get some education on that, on choice
Yeah, because
mobility
each amp,
vouchers per
or each
amp.
RAD has, based upon the requirement from HUD, 25% of those units after stabilization can choose
To move.
to move if they want to. And the second part of that is that, and I couldn't find anything on it, whether those choice mobility comes out of that overall 20% reserve, or it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And it's, I sent an email, and I know that you are both aware of the tenant at Madison, where, and it's a situation that's getting worse. And so we do need to look at mobility, in a ASAP.
Yeah, that was the
Like I
whole
said,
reason why HUD came out with those choice mobility vouchers, that they have a, I guess for lack of a better word, a paradigm of disbursement of poverty within the city, and that not always want to be concentrated in one spot. So after stabilization of RAD, if you stay here a year, you can go.
Yeah.
But only 25% of those units, because they didn't want to have 100% of the unit moving out all at one time. But fill out the paperwork for a regular voucher, but it's titled now a choice mobility voucher. It has priority, okay, based upon the legislation. And that was my question. Do it comes out of the overall 20% reserve? Because from reading from the legislation, they don't go on the waiting list.
Okay.
And that's why I'm just asking for some clarity. Does it come out of the overall 20% reserve that we can do? Or is it a free-for-all, meaning first come, first served?
And always hardship is a consideration.
Mm-hmm.
when we're dealing with mobility.
And they have a priority, that is their priority.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here looking at it now. That choice mobility voucher is a priority voucher. They have a priority preference, let me put it that way.
Okay. Okay, Chairman, we'll do more research about
Okay.
that to make sure we're complying with the choice mobility voucher and what it provides those tenants.
I just got one.
Just got one, okay, okay.
No
Okay.
problem. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Ms. Jackson.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, on to the finance, if you're ready, Chairman. I'm gonna
Where's
ask.
Pam at?
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
okay.
behind you, yeah, she's coming.
Right here. Good morning.
Good
Or
morning.
good afternoon, I'm not sure what time it is, but, on the finances for the month of July, everyone netted at an income for July, mid-year, which is a good sign. We also received that credit, Chairman, for the
Okay, for the
water
water.
company.
That'll work.
15,000, which is good, but we're still awaiting to see the upcoming bill. So we just cross our fingers that it's a normal average expense
Okay.
going forward. There's nothing more issues at Sunset. And I also reached out to Corey
Mhm.
from BKD. I have
Mhm.
yet to receive a response. Because to me, we need to, first of all, close 2019. That's priority at this point.
Were you able to get hold of Becca? Becca could do it.
Whenever I reach out to Becca to correspond to Corey, she'll tell me, well, let me get with Corey, so.
Okay,
But I will reach
okay.
out to her.
Okay.
Because I asked him, what do you need from us to get this thing closed? Is it something you need? I know there was some HUD questions that he asked. I didn't know if he needs some certified from HUD or what. But I really want to get 2019, because it's done.
Yeah, it's done. It's done. They just need a formal,
That's
I guess,
it.
presentation from
That's
the
it.
board and sign off and be done with it.
That's
But
it.
is it just 2019 or is it 2020?
Well, no,
Well,
2019, because you got some figures that will carry over to 20 to begin an ending balance in 19 will be a beginning balance in 20, and then the audit for 20 will begin.
So that's what we.
Yeah, we're 2 years behind.
Yeah, I know.
2 years behind.
Yeah, yeah, we're 2
Gonna
years
be
behind.
3, you're right. That's what, we're almost at the end of the year.
Tam, have you asked for a meeting with them, Mr. Chairman, so
Mhm.
that we can,
Speed up.
Corey's gone on some type of sabbatical training. He's out of pocket for a minute.
Okay, so maybe that's why I
That
can't-
may be causing some delay. But as soon as he gets back into circulation, I think it would be feasible for Tam and Director Benedicto to sit down with Corey so we can get this thing started. Because they've been awarded the contract, so
Yeah.
there's nothing stopping them from going ahead and doing 20 and
19,
21.
yeah, finish it
And
up.
closing out 19.
Close.
There's nothing stopping.
And he's scheduled to return this month, so, from that sabbatical, professional sabbatical that he was
Mhm.
on, so I'll reach out.
Okay.
well, certainly they got a backup team of some type. that-
Yeah, Becca is his backup, Becca
Yeah, and I
Kaiser.
can reach out to her and let her
That,
know.
that's his backup.
Yeah. She is, yeah, she's like the senior auditor or something like that, so. Anyway, those are the updates. Commissioner Lindsay and I met yesterday. We kind of went over a lot of these, issues that are at hand. And we are still, awaiting for RAD to go through. And we'll start drawing down that 4.7 that we have in cap funds. But right now, it's at a standstill until Sunset is actually in the process of
Okay.
RAD. But as of July, everything looks pretty good. I want to start, and you guys can confirm, but I think we should start the budget process, or have a budget meeting September or October. Which do you prefer?
September.
What did you say?
September.
September.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
That's next month.
Mhm.
So do we wanna do it before the board meeting, after the board meeting?
before.
Yeah, before would be
So
better.
the second, so I'll get with you guys.
That's
through
not
email,
com-
we'll
convolute,
coordinate.
yeah, not
Okay.
convolute the issue.
Yeah.
You guys have any questions?
Well, I'm gonna give an attaboy, I had a girl. Look at that, page 10. Those numbers look good. I don't see any deficit, as well as to not only the financial team, but Ms. Jackson. Those numbers look good. So, yeah, give yourselves a pat on the back.
And
Yeah,
I know
we're
Tam has
trying,
been
we're trying.
working double time because she has been training the new finance director for CAAC. And I appreciate you and your team for taking that time out to help Miss Regina Peters kind of get acclimated.
She's a pleasure to
And
work
if we
with.
can just get some of that HUD Health Reserve, some of that $5 million back.
It's gonna be
You
all
say
right.
get it back? What do you
Yeah,
mean
well,
spend
yeah,
it?
that's because
You mean
utilization has to be
use
brought
it.
up
Yeah,
in order for them to release it.
that's right,
Yeah.
that's right,
So we're gonna work on it.
okay.
But yeah, give yourselves a pat on the back.
What about our CARES money? What,
That's closed down.
That's done.
so, I mean, but, there's a closeout or something that we have to do on our end to close out?
Yes, we closed out for public
We have
housing.
done, we
But
have,
we're in the process of HCV, they just
Mm-hmm.
sent it out, how to report that, and it's some kind of portal that we go to upload all those numbers, so.
Yep.
is there
Yeah.
a due date or anything on it?
It's
or-
in September for HCV, public housing was due.
Yeah, that's the end
I
of
think it
the
was March.
federal,
We
It's
did
federal
that.
fiscal year,
Okay,
right.
Okay, so we shouldn't have a problem on that.
Yeah, that's the end of the federal fiscal year,
What about
September the
the,
30th.
What our capital funds, you know, there is a, obligation date that needs to be met.
Oh, yeah,
And I
we're still
thought we-
within, we're good, we're good, we're still
Okay.
within the obligation
That
date.
was one of them that was in
Mm-hmm.
23 that was due, but you don't see any problem.
No, no problem.
Well, the
We
capital fund-
obligated everything.
Everything, oh, it's already been,
It's pretty
everything.
much
That's just
terrain.
raised, yeah, it just hadn't
Okay.
been dispersed yet, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah. so
And
we're
with the
good.
capital fund, you can see it's first come, first in.
No, first out,
right.
yes, yes. Yeah, that's why I say I noticed there was one on that, on 23. Another question was our unrestricted funds. And I thought at one time we had close to $1 million in that.
We did.
No,
Yeah,
you know,
we
we.
Yeah, we had, at the beginning of the year, we had 900-some thousand.
Then
But-
we had to use some for
That's what I-
the
okay, so-
extension of the
Mhm.
loan.
On the bridge loan.
On the bridge loan, that's, okay, all right,
Mhm.
all right, all right. And so that's,
You ain't at me.
Yeah, that took out a big
That
bite.
took out a
Yeah.
big,
Yeah, that took out a big bite. Yeah.
I was so reluctant
Yeah.
to do that, but we had to do what we
Had
had to
to.
do.
Either that or lose the property, and we ain't about to do that.
Okay.
That's why we're working so hard. All these documents so we can try to get this extension.
Yes.
And we're
Again.
close, and we're close, and there are some other things that the board
Could
has
happen.
been looking at.
As far as-
That we might need to talk about this on the CAC side.
Oh.
Yeah.
If that makes.
I know there was a
if-
que- yeah,
if
we
it-
had
if
some-
this makes
something that
better
you-
sense.
This might not be the place, but we need to do ASAP, of creating a nonprofit that's not affiliated with MHA, but we need to create it,
Yes, let's,
ASAP.
can we do it by call possibly
Mm-hmm.
Well,
next week as a part of, our offline meeting that we need to have?
Okay.
the two.
Well, that's because of the IRS financing.
We're closing the
We
deal
done
on
got
the
that 1%
sunset.
of 1%, which is 1/100%.
Yeah.
We got it.
Commissioner Lindsay, you got anything?
All right.
You good?
I wasn't in that meeting.
He wasn't in that meeting?
Yeah, I remember some discussion about it, but I don't remember us okaying it,
What?
Okay, what?
the bridge loan.
We ain't done it yet.
Yeah, ain't done
Oh,
yet.
no,
We-
that one was done, yes.
You
That
talking
was
about,
done
you talking about
last
the,
year.
you talking about the extension?
Yeah, that was
Yes,
like in
yeah.
what,
Yeah,
January,
you talking about the
February?
extension?
Okay.
Yeah.
That was beginning of the year. year.
Yeah, had to do that. We didn't have no choice in that one.
Yeah, not
We
at
didn't
all.
have a choice.
Not at all. Or we was gonna have to come up with millions of dollars.
5 million to be exact,
Okay,
and some change.
I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Y'all good?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm good. Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Good job.
All right, thank you, Tamara. Well, Chairman, if you're ready, I
Mhm.
guess in keeping with finance, Mr. Rideout, if you'll come forward with the procurement report.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners
Good morning.
Morning.
and Director. I'm going to just give you an update on what we're doing with the procurement department here. So, last meeting, we did mention that we had some contracts that were coming up, the A&E contracts. And we have reached out to them. We had 4 to respond with letters. They're in your package for your review. And the score sheets also should be, they don't have them. Okay. So, once you guys get those scored and everything, we can move forward with setting a renewal contract. Solicitations, we have the BKD contract, which is submitted and ready for signatures. And once we get that done, we have a contract in place. We have the real estate broker's contract. We have notified the broker of her awardance, which is Dunn Realtors and Associates. She's excited about coming aboard and work with HUD. The director and I will get with her after you sign the resolution. We'll get with her, we'll sit down and we'll hammer out that contract and hopefully have that to you guys by September. We also have the updates on some of the projects that were mentioned in the last board meetings. Our second floor has been completed, all but one office, which has a water leakage in the wall. Once we get that repaired, we'll be able to finish that office, and that'll be off our list. We've also contacted our insurance company and found out that the leak that they're on the second floor is a possible insurance coverage. It won't reach our deductible of $25,000. But by the time the plumber comes in and they're gonna have to tear out the wall and do all their assessments, it's a possibility we could reach that also. The stairwells, the fire escape has been reinforced, painted, and ready for use. Our IT department on the switches and everything, the finance department and myself and IT department have been working closely on getting those switches in. We're vetting other companies to see how fast we can get them in, because right now, if we go through CDW, they are talking about 11 months. If we go with Ubiquity, I think we're looking at 2 to 4 weeks. And we've also looking at Amazon, which we can, if we can get it through them, it might be a little bit sooner. And then IT can move forward with their updates and all that they need. We've also talked about our voice over IP service for MHA. We have vetted several companies and we've got our 3 bids in, and we're looking at getting that placed. That resolution is also in your package. Director and I have talked about it extensively, and GoTo was the respondent that we approved. And once you guys sign off on that, she can and I can move forward with getting that in place. And soon as we get our IT department up and running on that part, our phone services will be working again.
We're on voice over IP today, are we not?
Yes, we are.
So basically, we're just upgrading the system that we have.
Yes.
Did we talk about maintenance contracts as a part of any negotiation and contracts?
Yes, we did, in terms of the service, and should the service fail. A part of this package, which makes it attractive, If there's an issue with the voice over IP, it will kick it over to our cell phone.
Oh, okay, very good.
Yes, yes.
This is major.
And this is, gonna create almost a 50% cost savings, from what we're paying Ring Central right now. So, we're thrilled about that as well,
So
so,
that contract is up.
yes, it's up,
We're on month to month with
month to
that.
month,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Recurrent payments, that's what we on.
yeah.
That's expensive.
Any questions?
Are we still using the pool structure?
That's
for,
that's something that we need to decide.
yeah, that's why
Whether or not
I'm
we
asking.
gonna go that route, or we gonna go in a single.
Yeah, and that's a concern,
Mhm.
about the pool structure. We had talked about it in our previous review. The board has since it's a policy, the board has the ability to review the policy and make adjustments and changes where they need to be. And one of the things about the pool process, it wasn't really our idea the first time, but we realized that it's not utilized properly, and we could get hit if we ever have a review of how contractors for different services are dealt with.
Mhm.
So usually our review comes up in April for,
Well, we can review it at any time, because
Right.
you remember during our review with Mr. Landecker, that came up as a topic of discussion.
yeah,
So.
because we're not utilizing it properly.
Yeah, we need to decide whether or not we're gonna go with a single contractor, or if we're gonna maintain the pool, we need some type of substantive legislation that backs it up. Now, like I said, I know the SBA has a pool CFR, but HUD doesn't.
But we know in the pool situation, when a person is, you absolutely do have to rotate, and
Mhm.
there's documentation that has to be followed as to why someone was passed over.
Mhm.
And I know none of that was available in any of the reviews that we've done in the
Right.
past. So that, I don't know if it's going to be, more constrained, to only have one person, or if it is a situation where we know that it's gonna be done properly. Whereas it is rotated, documentation is kept, and we know specifically why someone might have been.
I mean, I can see some advantages to having a pool,
I
you
can
get a
too.
diversity of businesses, and, you basically can manage some of that cost. But also, I see a disadvantage,
I do too.
okay?
Especially,
Not having somebody I can put my finger on, all right, I need to talk to X, Y, and Z. So, yeah, I see both sides of it, but there needs to be some type of quantitative analysis as to justify which way we wanna go. Because like I say, doing qualitative, cause it feels good, give me some hard code numbers.
well, we can look at how it's been done in the past and get a lot of information, so.
In other
Mhm.
places, I mean, because currently it's not a part of our
It-
policy.
that's
The first thing, it has to be a part of our.
It's a part of our policy.
It's part of
it just
policy,
hadn't
yeah.
been administered correctly.
It's a part of our policy.
Yeah, it's part of procurement policy, we just hadn't.
It's been a part of the practice for
Right.
sure.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that came up was it needing to be reflected in the policy.
Thank you, that's
Yes.
what I was trying to get at, thank you.
Yeah, we just decide what we need to do.
Okay. That's
Okay, we'll take a look.
What about our kiosks?
So we are, at the training point with our kiosks. We did have a little bit of a lull, just,
Okay.
getting stabilized with our server issues. And speaking of the server, our server room carpet has been removed, and we have, yes, hard surface flooring in our server room that happened as a part of the second floor getting done. And so our server room has been relocated to the fourth floor temporarily. We'll relocate again back to his home, and we'll be able to pick up with the training piece for our kiosk. So we're at the tail end, we had to stabilize and do some internal infrastructure work.
So when will the equipment actually arrive?
Oh, it's here. It is here. It's just a matter of someone
But
coming
it's
on
not,
site
it's
now.
not located where it's gonna be, is it? That's the question.
Well, I believe it is.
Oh,
It's
oh.
home. Yeah, I know it's not probably as
Yeah.
fun because you don't see the kiosk when you straight come in, but we have that space that's not being utilized off to the side, and it allows for our lobby to continue to have
Well,
usage.
My
And then-
concern, I guess, is the way it's sitting now, it's behind where where our receptionist is, right?
It's to the side of that, yes,
To the
sir.
side of that, and then you would have individuals come in, would they be around the kiosk, you know, while one person is there with that big screen, would folks be able to see there?
Right, and that's why the privacy issue.
Yes.
So that's why the open lobby wasn't the best place. So, in that, the nook off to the side allows for people to put in their information and not have the lobby behind them, seeing their private information. And so it also allows for us to assist, if possible, privately, with that little office off to the side.
Yeah, because having an understanding, there is no expectation of privacy in public. So if we want our clients to have privacy, we have to create the
The
privacy.
environment for it. Any timeline as to when they will be totally installed, and we will be sharing with the community that they can now utilize the kiosk.
I'd say September,
Mhm.
we're ready for a press
Next
release.
month.
Yes, sir.
Ready to rock and roll?
Chairman, Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have anything else?
We
Mm,
just want to
Mr. Ryder had
also
anything?
make a note that we have started our 2023 procurement list, and Erica and I is working on that, and we will have that also for the budget when you get ready to review that also.
Are you doing any recruitment
Recruitment as in,
of vendors,
Vendor.
of
Business.
providers?
Mhm.
for services that we're needing?
Any
Yes.
services?
Well, no,
Yes,
no,
I'm doing
services,
ISO.
but just maintain the
In
database.
particular, we're doing ICE on our security service. We're doing ICE on some other projects that have been brought up. I'm steady reaching out to a lot of vendors, talking to them, letting them know a little bit about us, you know.
One of the things that in the last review we did is that we didn't really have a good database of various vendors.
Mhm.
And we at one time were doing job fairs and being a part of the community and educating the community as to how to do business with MHA. Not particularly because we had something that we were trying to get people to do right then, but because we wanted more database to select from.
Okay.
So that was more my question about
Okay.
recruitment.
I will work on that. I will make that one of my main projects that I'll start working on looking into. I still have some connection with some of my vendors from the state and some of my procurement partners from the state that can also help out with that project as well.
Well, have we been able to get in our own vendor login database?
No, we are working on that.
I mean,
One
I
of the
just hate for all that
glitches-
data to go away. That's all.
Yes, I understand. And I did briefly talk with Carrie about the outreach and the
Mhm.
part of the position. And we are going to be doing that. As a matter of fact, Commissioner Lindsay emailed me something with procurement. And that's the City of Little Rock's event that's just outreach, teaching people how to do business with the city. And we'll be doing the same pretty soon. And having an actual database full of prospects, whether we're needing to use them today or sometime in the future.
Yeah, because to get it early and man out, and that's why we would encourage businesses to sign up on our database.
Yes.
Because they be the first to know
Mhm.
before we actually put that RFP out.
That's right.
Then
Or
there's-
RFQ.
Then there are those micro contracts where you don't have to put them out for bid.
Put them out
and
for
if you
bid,
got the
because we already got
database.
them on the database. Anything further?
I'm done.
All right, Mr. Rideout, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Chairman, moving on to legal update. And my mandatory statement, the MHA Board of Commissioners maintains their position that there will be no settlements with former employee litigants. Sad. Okay, so not a whole lot of movement updates here, but I can tell you that with Marshall Nash versus MHA, of course, I kept the July update just for a point of reference, but we know that MHA got a favorable ruling in that case. According to council, Nash has some,
Please move
Oh,
that.
they can't
He'll be laid out on the floor.
I know it, that was a bad idea.
Yeah, it was. Never do that. Never.
But thank you.
Don't pay no attention to him,
So, Nash did reach out to council to indicate that he plans to refile, but no actual action has happened
And
yet.
just as a point of clarification, he can refile, but he doesn't have a new question. As far as state court, he'd have to appeal instead of refiling. And if he takes it to federal court, there needs to be a federal question, mostly a 14th Amendment question, due process. I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening, so.
We're seeing a lot of strange things, Chairman, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll need to see what's next.
Okay, all right. In terms of the question, with the declaration of trust and additional dollars for that, no movement there. That's been a no, really. I've got, Council Sylvester Smith is here to provide updates in person with Pinnacle Strategy Group and the fallen tree case, Victor Bohvia versus MHA. So I'll just pause now and ask for Sylvester to come up with
Good
Council
morning, Attorney
Smith.
Phil.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for the opportunity to come and visit. I did want to come in person because we're finally getting the ball moving on some of the matters that have been assigned to me. The Pinnacle Strategy case, we filed a motion to dismiss for a variety of reasons. First of all, I want to remind the board that Pinnacle Strategy Group sued your chairman in his individual capacity. And so we moved to have him dismissed because frankly, there's just no viable claim or rhyme or reason for him to be sued. And then we've asked for the entire agency to be dismissed because that contract, the way it was restructured, it required some mandatory mediation and then arbitration before it should have ever been filed. That will be heard next Thursday at 1:30. And so I just want to let you know in case you want a board member wanted to be present, it's going to be via Zoom, or if the director wanted to designate someone to appear. So I want to get that information in front of you. I normally don't like talking in great detail about things because this meeting is in public. The falling tree case, I spoke to the counsel for the plaintiff a couple months back and advised that you got the wrong defendants, we don't own this property. The chairman was kind enough to kind of save me some time and save you some money by doing the title research on this for me. And so he was able to provide me with proof of who owned it. We submitted that to the attorney for the plaintiff with the expectation that the claim would be amended, either dismissing us or adding the rightful owner. They didn't do either. And now the statute of limitations, I believe, is gone by. And so I'll be getting with the chairman, if that's okay, to put together a affidavit to attach to a motion for summary judgment. And we don't own it, so there's no claim against us. So I expect that in 90 days or so, we'll be able to get that together, get it to a hearing, and have a resolution which should work in our favor. And then on the ITEX matters, we are still in the early stages of the discovery process. I don't expect that to settle. I expect it to be a long journey. And if it's okay with the board members, I'll keep providing kind of real-time updates to the chairman, and then we'll provide the written or verbal updates to the entire board monthly, if that's acceptable.
That'll work.
I'm good with that.
Any objections?
No problem.
I'm good with that.
I do have one other issue, and Mr. Chairman, we talked about this with the contract for my firm. I've been working with staff and trying to just retrace the steps on the RFP that produced my relationship. And it appears that some of the documents that put all that together, we don't have. I won't share my theories about why, but I think we've had some bad apple former staff people, and I'm not certain that some of this wasn't nefarious, but I just want to leave it at that. However, what I'm going to ask the board to do would be I have a very simple engagement letter that I'd like the board to authorize the staff to execute so that I can make sure that what happened, Commissioner, I see you kind of looking around.
Go ahead.
Just as a reminder, I came to work with you as a result of an RFP that you guys did last summer. And my understanding,
Yeah, that the board did.
yes,
Yeah, we approved all the attorneys that wanted
Yes,
this,
okay.
on a rotational basis.
Yeah.
And he was part of that
Yeah.
group.
All right.
He was
Go
part of
ahead.
that group.
but that never in my opinion, the result of that approval should have been a written contract. And I think you guys typically do resolutions. We can't find the resolution, to my knowledge. And so what I'm asking is, everyone has that institutional memory of what happened. And so that based upon that, the board authorized the staff to sign the standard engagement letter that reflects everything that was set out in the RFP. So that's what I would be asking.
Yeah, see, I think I even offered to you in a matter of confusion to come back to the board and offer you an affidavit that this did happen, and that this resolution was passed, even though we couldn't find a copy of it, but just to say, yeah, we did approve it. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Mr. Chairman, I have been constantly amazed at what these board members and you in particular can remember and the vast knowledge about housing issues and other things. So the board voting would be sufficient for me to put forth that letter and just want to make sure the board understands where I'm coming from. Remember, Commissioner Anthony knows this. I kind of hold myself out to be a bit of a procurement expert. I contributed to procurement law, the development on the state level. And so it would be professionally embarrassing for me to have a contract with a public entity and then there's
Follow the rules.
holes poked in the fact that I didn't follow the rules and cross my T's and dot my I's. And so that's why I'm asking that we take this step.
Understood.
And then with regard to the conversation about pools, as your counsel, I think I would encourage you guys to continue this dialogue and then to decide what you want to do. All the commissioners have brought up really good points. I think it can work very well. I do believe that HUD will allow it from the meeting I participated in, as long as we have a policy. And to Commissioner Anthony's point, we either rotate or we have a rationale. And maybe, for example,
What we did.
there's general counsel, there's eviction counsel, and so if we say this is gonna be this person's role, this is gonna be that person's role, then I believe you don't have any issue. And then finally, I would say, once you have that policy in place, as long as we follow the policy, the only person that would have standing to come and complain about it would be one of us. And that wouldn't be smart. I mean, we're, maybe I made $2 and I would have liked to made $3, but it's a blessing to keep making 2 in this economy. So I don't think you'd have any issues with us, and I don't believe HUD would have a problem as long as it was, to Commissioner's point, set out in the policy and the policy is followed. Anybody have any questions?
No, I just give yourself a pat on the back.
Oh, thank you, Mr.
I mean, the way things have been going and dealing with the litigation at hand, I just think you're doing a hell of a job. So I could give yourself a pat on the back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I don't know if a motion is needed, but if so, I mean, that's where I am. I just need a signed letter of intent if I could get it. Thank you, guys.
Who's gonna provide the letter?
I'll draft the letter.
Okay. Well, it wouldn't take too long. I mean, once we get the letter, we can call a special Zoom meeting and take care of it and be done with it.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All
Director
right,
Benedicto?
wrapping up on the legal update. So remember the one with the Arkansas Fair Housing Commission and the litigant that came in as a, well, I think it should have been settled a long time ago, is what Commissioner Anthony said. So there's a settlement agreement in process, and I guess without to go into too much detail, since it's kind of in discussion, to just go ahead and settle this. There's some training of staff involved in what's being proposed, which, of course, I know the board always support training and educating our staff. There's nothing to report with Jarman versus MHA and Biddle versus MHA. From the previous update, there's a trial date set for September 21, 2022. And I've received no subsequent update on that particular matter from Mr. Chaddock, but I'm sure I will this month as they prepare for trial.
Director, on Jarman versus MHA, we have had, okay, we had the OIG and we had the other stuff, okay. The OIG portion was closed,
Yes,
and we still hanging out there with that other part. Okay.
yes, ma'am. No further legal updates.
Development.
Wait. So, the meeting that we had with who,
Okay.
and there was a follow that we need to respond to them.
She already had.
Yes.
You've done that? Oh,
It's-
are you working?
Yes, sir.
All
The
right,
procurement, yes, sir.
When
I'm
is
working
that?
on it September, there's a September date,
Okay.
yes.
We gonna-
And part of that was training again, and so, we've got 3 people, I've just finished mine, that's scheduled for training, which that'll be provided to HUD in the response that we are,
Procurement's part.
yeah, it is procurement training, yeah,
Yes,
contracts
yes.
and procurement.
Okay.
That was certainly one of, a major one that we're expected to comply with, and we will. Okay, in terms of development, so of course, I've got to get some documents over to the HUD field office, related to Section 18. I spoke with, Ms. Constance Williams this morning, and I told her I couldn't talk to her long because I gotta get ready for this board meeting, but I would be circling back to her following this meeting. And, also, this is related to Sunset. I know that Quintina, or Ms. Bailey, the manager at Sunset, is working with the relocation team to start booking the community room to discuss relocations. Letters have gone out as of last week, or earlier this week on Monday, updating them about relocation and what to expect. So certainly some administrative work to do on that end, but we are moving forward with hopefully closing out Sunset by October.
Sounds good. Any further questions for Director Benedicto?
Elm Street,
That's CAAC,
no,
that's CAAC.
They're
okay.
the current owners of Elm Street.
Say it again?
They're the current owners of Elm Street.
CAAC.
Right,
Mhm.
so we can't do nothing until.
CAAC.
No, we can
Okay.
We can plan, but I mean.
Okay, right.
Because, I
That's
mean, what has to be done per legislatively has to come through MHA.
Okay,
But you can't do
right,
nothing
wait,
until.
okay,
we
I
do
got
something.
that. I got that part. But as a part of our plan,
Mhm.
there needs to be a mention
Yeah, we
of
need
what
to
we
do
plan to
that.
do, when and if we ever
Right.
do get to Elm Street, right,
Mhm.
okay, all right.
And Chairman, one mention on the development piece, so you will see once we go through the resolutions, one included for the authorization of some 289 vouchers for
Mhm.
Pinnacle Place.
Mhm.
So that is in the resolution lineup.
Right, any other questions?
No, I'm good.
All right, thank you,
No,
Director
all right.
Benedicto.
No, no,
Uh,
feel that.
Commissioner Anthony?
On the employment side, part of this report, I want to defer to the director to announce or introduce any new employees that we have. I think that we've made great strides in the restructuring of MHA to get us where we need to be in order to move the agency forward. We've had some slowdowns, but I think that we're about to get what we need in place. So, Director, if you would introduce any new employees and the positions that they fill.
Okay, so, our 5 new employees are working on the 2nd floor right now. They've, completed orientation, Ms. Jackson and, Her team is training them quite aggressively. We've added additional component to their training, which is they're all trained on how to do inspections if need be. Because we don't ever want inspections to be the reason why people are delayed in getting into housing. And I'll ask Ms. Frazier if you can name our 5 employees you happen, sorry to put you on the spot, or Ms. Jackson.
No, our family housing specialists are, we have 5 new housing specialists. So we have Patricia Atterbury, Shannon Chase, Letha Flano, Destiny Lewis, and Tamika Williams. So the 4 of them started on August the 1st, and then 1 started August the 8th, so.
Wonderful.
So we're at a total of 11. And we're getting there, tell ya. We're getting there. And of course, you've met Ms. Bailey already.
Question would be, we talked about a maintenance engineer or person for MHA to primarily, and we were thinking at one time that that person would be primarily for Sunset. We left out the fact that we will still continue with NSP2s.
Yes.
And we have several NSP2s that we need to discuss, because if they're down, then that's lost income.
Yes.
So there needs to be some conversation as to how we remedy that situation in order to get those units back up.
But not only that, I think that when we do keep that 1 manager and 1 maintenance, that legacy should be part of that discussion as well.
Even though
Legacy.
CAAC,
We co-own it.
I understand, but we've taken on that responsibility through the staffing that we put out there to take care of, because we have 2 people out on the property. We have Stuart and Mr. Tommy. So we've kind of taken on that responsibility of taking care of legacy.
Yes. We have pulled our NSP2 roster to start getting an assessment and even digitally having the photos and the specs on all of those. And I've been working with Carlos on getting that digitized and to get the revenue streams, and I see make-readies. In terms of,
Yeah.
I do, I see make-readies. I did have a meeting with Kevin Howard across the street to get the backstory and the history and all the documentation on NSP2s, which he was very gracious and quickly provided me a binder on that. So we are absolutely, NSP2s are on the radar to be filled.
No campaign to do
Nonpartisan.
Are there any other positions to be filled?
So, well, speaking of maintenance, that one's still hanging out there. I've had several interviews, I know, working with Starlin's schedule, and several have stood us up. For some reason, that's been challenging. Not really sure why. It's been, if you think about it, we're trying to hire during the Great Resignation, right? When people are just deciding, since COVID, they don't care to come in and work. But
I must brag, we've not had that problem.
I know, you don't have that problem at all. I will say, we are pretty much there, except for that maintenance piece. So yeah, that's what's outstanding right now. Now, we do have some other positions that need to be filled. This is a part of natural attrition and turnover in any workplace.
We want to talk about the executive.
Yes, I will, thank you for that. Executive administrator position, you'll see that resolution in your lineup as well. And so through my experiences here and just, I appreciate you all taking and listening to my feedback as well. I'm just really needing just some stronger support on that level to hand off some of the things that I've been kind of bogged down with that can be really dealt with on administrative level, strong administrator. And so that position and job description you'll find in your packet.
Anything else? Okay. Don't have anything to report, except that, call them, they're still working on, trying to unplug them holes of that IT.
And I don't have anything.
Okay.
But I can, make this comment that even, we are voting on a, real estate firm. And with the potential of that firm or individual coming on board, and the sale of a piece of property, which would be worth about $180,000, add that with the other $300,000, so that's almost $500,000, we can do some things. So glad to see that they're on board so that we can move forward. Ms. Center, do you have any reports to give?
Well, sir. Chairman Lowe, Commissioners, Director. I just wanted to report that on, I believe it was last week, the Executive Director and I had an extensive meeting with Matt, our legal, regarding our McCormick Barron situation. And I have completed those with the help of Ms. Jackson. We've gotten those inspections done, and you all have been sent the reports today. And after you review the reports, we can get those to Maddie. She asked that those be designated Section 8, of which ones were Section 8, and so we can move forward on that. Okay. And I've also have completed the report from the review of the homes at Granite Mountain, and I will be getting that to you all. We good?
Yeah.
She's looking at you.
We are going through 2 reacts, and of course, Deborah's not part of those reacts. We have one going on at Elm Street. It's in a 60 to 90 day time frame. Deborah went over and graciously assisted the folk at Elm Street to make sure we're ready for that. And our maintenance crew has been over making sure that physically we're ready for it. But files are on top, and certainly we're trying to make sure that the building is on top. We're finishing up a file review from ADVA out at Homes at Granite Mountain. And that should be finished up by the end of the month. But we are trying to we are getting to the audits request, whether it be file or whether it be physical. And they have a way, especially in dealing with ADVA, that it's one file one day, but no, I don't want that, send me this file. So we've been back and forth 3 or 4 times in making sure. And then there's this issue of educating our residents of signatures on certain documents. And if they do not sign, they are out of compliance. And there seems to be an issue. We understand that with several of our residents, there's this thing about, I'm not signing nothing. So, but I don't think they know the implication of that when some documents that are part of their contract are not signed. So we're working our way through that.
I don't know if you saw the email that Brian sent about the REACT over at Sunset, and he wasn't too much worried about it. But I think one of the other agencies, I want to say Loman, kind of raised a stink about it, but it wasn't a big concern to Brian.
I mean, when you look
Knowing it's going to become good.
when you look at what these rad deals have drug, they're more than 5 years old. And because we were going through rad, some of the more intrinsic work has been held up. And it's not done in the corner, in the back, in the dark. Those agencies knew what the efforts were to get these deals done, and we just couldn't. So we are doing maintenance to make sure that people are safe and healthy in their apartments, and actually repairing those things that need to be repaired on a daily basis. But there is no surprise that these deals have been 5 to 6 years old, and really Sunset is probably older than that.
Yes.
And really Madison, and so is Homes at Granite Mountain, because of changes in venues and who was actually the developer. So, yeah, those are some of the challenges.
Anything further?
Chairman, I do want to add this. This really goes along with, in some ways, the employment, when Commissioner Anthony looked at me. I do want to recognize and just really speak to how strong Ms. Jackson has been with getting our mainstream voucher list cleaned up. That was a mess, had the wrong people, and she's cleaned that up. And she's thrown into this role, just really literally thrown into it overnight, and have really just stepped up to the plate. So I really appreciate her for that. Supporting the compliance director with McCormick Barron, getting our waiting list pulled, and letters sent out, helping, being a strong support to HR with our onboarding. A lot of changes going on, and we've been really able to count on her with getting us the administrative work that we need. Certainly, we should have, I guess, to some extent, but did not expect the crisis or potential crisis with Big Country and those 28 families that we had to very quickly get vouchers to. Ms. Jackson successfully led that up, and they've all had vouchers to be picked up. Now, I will say, there's some who didn't, about 9 did not pick up their vouchers, but we certainly have done our part in our outreach to get them rehoused. So
That raises another question. If we find it's uninhabitable, and yet they don't want to move, then what does that say about their voucher?
we'll see. I'll have to do some research, Mr. Jackson.
So what happens is, come September 1st, if the utilities are turned off, we will place the unit in abatement,
Okay,
which stops the payment.
right.
The landlord would then have 30 days to rectify the problem. If the problem is not rectified within 30 days, the client has no choice but to pick up the voucher. If they
Or lose it.
Or lose it.
Okay,
If they don't
Okay.
pick it up and utilize it, it'll be lost.
okay.
The contract would then be terminated 60 days if the problem has not been
Correct.
completely corrected with Big Country.
Do we have any other housing apartments that are on the radar of Section 8 with several complaints, refusal to do repairs, that
Yes,
we need to be looking at to suspend it?
yes, we have several.
Then
We need
I
a
would-
list on the board.
I would ask
Yeah.
that that list be forwarded to
Okay.
the director and to the chairman for the appropriate action and the investigation of the board for the purpose of suspension.
And how many vouchers are at each one of
located
those
each
sites?
location.
That's great.
Yeah, because we ain't writing a blank check to folks out here now.
How did we get our chin kicked in by safe and healthy?
Well, anything else, Ms. Senator?
No.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I don't see, since our Zoom is on, I would recognize Mr. Jackson, if he would come forth.
Good afternoon, how's everyone doing?
Good afternoon.
Great, just here today, Chairman, Directors, Director Benedicto, just to provide you an update on where we are in terms of marketing activity.
That'll work.
Our primary deliverable at this point is we're working on the redesign and development of the MHA website. So I know that a couple of weeks ago, I sent you guys over the test link to the
Right.
site. John's gonna put that up right here. We're gonna talk a little bit about that, but what you're gonna see ultimately on this piece, there's a couple of things I wanna make sure I articulate. One, we know we wanna move away from the current site. The technology is dated. We're currently building this piece. If you remember specifically, we wanted to try to create a bit more of a brand story inside the website. So it really speaks in terms of why you should choose one of our properties, a place you want to call home. There's some, the document that you see in front of you is where are we as of today in terms of developing a site map and then taking the site map and having our art department to design those said pages throughout the website. And now our developers are actually in the process of coding those to make them functional. We've got about 30 pages. The site in totality is going to be about 60 pages. But we've got about 30 of them coded, and then we hope to have another maybe 15 completed by tomorrow. One thing I want to start out with, the old site, if you remember, had the main nav up in the upper thirds. It had the slider there, but the slider really became a place that we used for basically digital flyers and advertising, and not necessarily telling our story. What we're going to do here in this piece is that it's going to be dynamic and it's going to change with video and with imagery as we see fit. And we're bringing the main nav down to the bottom of the upper thirds. But as we start to scroll, John, go ahead and roll down. As we start to scroll down, you're going to see that we're really streamlining this. Part of the problem has been with the existing site, and you can stop right there, John. Go back up just a little bit. Thank you, right there, brother. Is that what audience are we speaking to when they land on the homepage, the landing page? So we're going to develop portals that allow us, obviously, for residents, for landlords, for bid opportunities. You know, right now our bid opportunities, we have it in the upper thirds in the slider because the way it exists now as links, it's really kind of hidden and hard for people to get to. We're going to make sure that that we remedy that. Obviously, as we scroll down, go ahead and scroll down a little bit, John. Right here, just stop. We're also making sure that the board meetings are now prominent on the page. Currently, right now, you have to link and go down to a couple other clicks before you can get to it. Now, we do have the imagery in the slider, but it's not dynamic. What you'll be able to do now, here, click and immediately it will load up our content, and that's going to be easier for folks. Continue to scroll down as well. A couple of things, we've still got some of our branded key points, and we obviously, Director Benedict, we're at a point now, we'll talk about in terms of next steps of huddling with you and your leadership team, because some of this may have to change based on now the priorities and the direction that the organization is going. But obviously, we think about redevelopment of Rock, our partner organization, Central Arkansas Housing Corporation, Choice Neighborhood, will have links that will allow us, and we'll come back up and show how those are going to play. But in theory, as you, and I'm not sure right now, John, just for my benefit, click on Central Housing Corporation. There shouldn't be much there yet but that in theory, it will be dynamic. Go to component lead-in content for each one of these components, and then you can click and read more. And if there's an additional website, which we know for Central Arkansas Housing Corporation it's not ready for that right now, John, so you can go back. That will scroll down. Let's continue to scroll down the homepage. And then we started to talk about, and scroll down a little bit more, we started to talk a little bit about what do we want to sell. In our current site, we don't sell our assets very well. So a couple of things we want to do is make sure that we highlight on properties. Obviously, committed for our clients, they're only concerned about how do I gain access to our properties, so applying for properties. And then wherever those partners may be, whether it's landlords or financing partners or community organizations, they can partner with us. But let's click on our properties just for the sake of argument. I can't remember my developers if we've got that live yet because we're still working through that. Scroll on down. And then obviously we'll have, we're gonna play through this copy. And then as you scroll on down, go back up, I'm sorry. Click on read more after our properties. I wanna see something here. See it? Okay, great. Yeah, we're gonna have, and stay right here in this area here, John. A couple of things you're gonna see as we click into some of those sub-components of the site. We'll be able to go a bit deeper in terms of narrative. This will be our lead-in copy. Obviously, this imagery will change, and actually imagery of our properties are placeholder images right now. Our staff photographers going out, shooting architectural photos of all of our assets. So we're gonna shoot from wide, we're gonna shoot from aerial shots, where we'll be able to have those assets. But as we scroll down our properties, we're then gonna specifically identify imagery for each of our sites. And we're playing with that right now. I'll go ahead and click on that. Let's see, it's probably not there, but as we dig into that, we'll have the content with a specific site. We'll have specifics on different floor plans, and you'll be able to see all of that from each of the properties as we play through that. And then obviously we'll have contact information driving back to the appropriate numbers for that. Yeah, well, let's scroll on down as we keep going through our assets. And then obviously back to our lower thirds. On our main nav, one of the things that we talked about a little bit as well, our current website doesn't really allow us to talk about quality of life within our properties. So we wanted to add a My MHA, which becomes really a community portal for us to really think in terms of change agents and residents' life. What this is really designed to do is to allow us to go in and highlight what's the programming based on properties. When we initially started this activity, there was a proposed program, and I think maybe there was even some time where it was executed, Director Benedicto, there was Tea with the Tenants. For anybody who remembers that program, anything of that nature, we can highlight some of that. As we scroll down a little bit, John, each of these pieces are gonna be dynamic. So as we go in and hover over some of these pieces, we can play whether it's Tea with the Tenants, it's the community theater, whatever the case may be, which will allow us to then go into potentially a photography portal. We may even, based on what you guys' comfort level, develop some short videos where we get client testimonials on the quality of life on the properties, so we can have a lot of fun there. And then we're gonna scroll down where we just try to keep all players involved in what's happening with news and announcements and what's happening with scheduled meetings. So let's go back to the main main homepage, landing page, John, back up to the upper thirds. Let's go to housing programs, and let's just go through this main nav. A lot of these may not be active, but I do want to scroll up a little bit so they can see potentially how it's going to work. Our overall overview, we scroll down, and don't worry about that in the imagery. All of that is placeholder imagery. It's just as we're building it out, and when we're done, 100% of all of this imagery is going to be replaced. Now, we're shooting architectural imagery, but because of some privacy laws, we don't want to necessarily go knocking on doors and asking people to shoot. So we're going to be working with this body, with you, Director Benedicto, to find out if we can get actual residents. That's great. If not, we can find stock photography that's a better representation of our tenant population. As we scroll down programs, you see how it's going to be modular, allow us to specifically identify our programming. Let's go back to our communities, and we're just kind of John, we'll kind of scroll through. And then residents, landlords, well, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Overview of residents forms and landlords. Each, what we're doing right now that doesn't necessarily exist on the site except for buried into the site with a lot of voluminous content, is that we're going to try to really streamline and make it easier for all of our stakeholders to get to the information that's most important to them. As we scroll through, the site is going to really allow us to dig into those who may be interested in becoming landlords, maybe there may already be existing landlords, and then again, you're going to see a repeating theme in terms of the modular kind of components that we have there. And then we're also going to make sure with the existing site, scroll back up, John, and stop right there at the forms, that we do a better job of populating all of the documents that prospective landlords are going to need without having to navigate throughout the site endlessly to find it. Now, of course, Director Benedicto, a lot of this was based on a site map that existed prior to you coming on board. So as you and your team start to really view the clickable link, I want you to dig into it, and you may say, oh, we want to change direction a little bit, we want to adjust a couple of things, and we're completely open to that. But if not, we're going to continue to stay the course, get the site completed, and then we'll get it standing and published, and then if there are adjustments there, we can do those after the fact. Now, if you look at the document that I have in front of you, we have the redesign process. We're past that where we are with the current state, and make no mistake, when you look at the current links, you're going to see that we know that we're in the middle of the haircut. So you're going to still have some broken links. We have some content that we're missing, that we're migrating from the old site. We also are probably going to sit down with you, Director Benedicto, because there's some content missing because it didn't exist, because that component of the website is completely new. So we've got to decide how committed we are, which I know we are, because it's been the brainchild of our Commissioner Anthony in terms of my MHA and how we want to go down through the programming. But the Tea with the Tenant may have gone the dinosaur chairman. Mm-hmm. What are some of the programming they want to put there? What are some of the priority programming components that we may want to add into that? So we'll have to think through that. But we do know in terms of user experience and functionality to the site, there are some broken links. There are some really cool things that we say in our business, how do we make the site sexy? So in hovering over some of the components and some of the dynamics, we do know that even this upper third here, John, just humor me and hit that forward arrow to the right there. Okay, we don't have that active yet. But in theory, what's gonna happen, there's gonna be primary imagery. With each page that we go on, that imagery is gonna change based on the dynamics. If we're on a page talking about landlords, you're gonna see imagery that really speaks to landlords. With some of our strong kind of header copy, that's really kind of reinforcing some of our tenets of why we believe that calling one of our residents home is so critically important.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes, ma'am.
I know you got flow here, but just a couple of things that,
Yes, ma'am.
as we're looking at this. This is all part of the rebranding
Yes, ma'am.
effort that we've been talking about for
Sometime
3-4 years.
now. Yes, ma'am.
So as a part of this, and with staffing haven't changed as much as it has,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
certainly would like to see pictures of our staff.
Absolutely.
Staff page
Absolutely.
that, and contact information, official contact
Yes, ma'am.
information.
Go to the about page for me, right quick. I'm gonna make-
Okay, you know, that would matter. I would like to see something pertaining to RED and the
That's good.
changing over of our properties.
Okay.
I don't know where you wanna put that.
Scroll on down.
But,
Scroll on down, John. Scroll on down. Scroll on down. Scroll on down. Okay. What we're going to do then, you said,
and some before and after shots, if you don't mind,
okay.
of what we got. But
In terms of the properties?
properties.
Okay, yeah, that's certainly, absolutely, Commissioner Anthony. In terms of staff, it's gonna be on the about page. There was some discussion that we had about what's gonna be appropriate. One of the things that we talked about some time ago, that we'll have an administrative component on the about. So when we go to about MHA, we'll obviously have our directors, we'll have our director of the organization, and then we'll determine from there how deep we wanna go in terms of staff representation. We also talked about, based on the different properties, maybe identifying the property manager and having imagery on each of the property managers there as well. So we can certainly talk through that, but that's great feedback because it speaks to where we are in terms of content needs. As we build out a lot of this, we're gonna be migrating content from the existing site, and there may be some, as you stated, some priority changes. Now, if we go back to the landing page, to the main page, let's scroll down. And as we go, keep going through this, right here, go back up. Right here would be where we could populate this with whatever those programs.
Okay.
If it's RAD, we can certainly add it here and tell you how we have that treatment there. RAD's there, it gives them lead-in copy,
Okay.
and then we can click and we can dig and go even further. Scroll down a little bit more for me, John, if you don't. And then when we get here in terms of our Discovery MHA, if there's any other components we can add, we try to be very deliberate in designing this in a modular way that we can add to those components. So, and scroll down a little bit, John. I can remember I'm having a senior moment. Scroll on down a little bit. Okay, we're back in the lower thirds. Okay, you can go back up to the upper thirds, but we can make sure that we integrate that. And I think as we talk about the content needs, I'll probably get over here. I know I'll get over here with our account services team, and we need to really, as you share, here's what those priorities are. We know that content still needs to be populated here. So RAD and other things that you're sharing is probably part of the next wave of content that's gonna be added because we're in the middle of the haircut. But in the event that we still don't have it in there, we'll certainly make sure that we get with you guys in terms of either migrating from the existing site or updating content to make sure that it's added. So staffing was always part of our plan. RAD is already a component that's an existing site, so it's a matter of just integrating it into the new piece, so we can certainly work through that as well.
As part of the branding, I'd like to see the kiosk service be a part of it because we are going to kiosks. The other part of that
So,
is
and forgive me, Commissioner, forgive me for interrupting you. RAD, that I know we're gonna be there, staffing at the administrative level and the local sites, and you say you want kiosk service. I just wanna make sure that my folks at the office are listening to this.
Well, I mean,
Write that down.
you know,
I don't
and maybe
forget.
that comes under my, I'm just saying, that's a new service we're offering, and we wanna introduce it To the community.
To the public.
And then
right.
what we'll need to figure out, and under your leadership and the rest of the board and you, Director Benedicto, where is the appropriate place for it to be housed on the site? Is that gonna be, when we think in terms of our main nav here, where would we want that? Or does that become what we design as a utility link, maybe an additional link somewhere else? Or does it become something that we populate on the homepage as we scroll down, John, just a little bit? Or do we stop here and say, do we drop it in one of these three models? We try to keep it really simple, because when we get here, people are gonna have to make a
I can
choice.
see it under for residents. I can see it under the
That's
for
where we're
residents.
going, so then
Yeah,
we
I
can
can
drop
see
it
it
in
under
here.
residents.
So let's
Yeah.
click on that right quick. I don't think it's hot yet. But we start thinking about the Residents Resource Center, and we scroll down, we can go ahead and you see we wanna have, where we can go post, we can go video, whatever we're gonna decide. We hadn't decided what these are gonna be yet. That's why we got the Lorem Ipsum copy, just placeholder copy. But that can easily become one of those kiosk services. We drop that in, and we can populate as deep as we need to go based on services and program and priorities. Yes, sir.
Under the landlord, when they fill out that form, do they send it to staff, or do they have to print it off, or what?
In terms of, ultimately, we're gonna need to decide, and that's what's gonna be a discussion with Director Benedicto. It really becomes, what's the best approach for user experience? Now, for the site here, I'm gonna think in terms of how do I make it as easy as possible for staff to get work done. So in a perfect world, we would love to just make those fillable forms. They fill out the forms, they push, it's redirected to someone in electronic format, as opposed to trying to print something out and get it here. So we just need to figure out how deep we're going to go with that in terms of those forms and how we want to engage with those respective groups. And that thinking, those functional groups in the organization, and that thinking can work across functional groups throughout the entire agency. It's just a matter of how do we want to approach the content management on the back end, and how robust we need to build that. I know what really birthed a lot of these concerns on the initial design was just on the procurement side. How do we make sure those who are interested in doing business with MHA are accurately captured in our database, and then that we can automate downloading that information in a CSV and Excel file on the back end. Currently, the technology forces us to do it manually, and we want all that automated. And we can take that same thinking across a number of functional groups. You'll also see on page 2, content needs. And to your point, Commissioner Anthony, that can get as deep as we need to go. Director Benedicto, I think it's really gonna be a matter of probably scheduling a time after you've debriefed with your executive staff, and they can go through and we can make sure we've addressed all the wish list needs and then all the practical needs of the site, because it's gonna then birth probably some additional content. For example, right now, we're just using My MHA because we know that was so new. 100% of that content has to be supplied to us, and we've got to figure out what that's going to look like. From resident life, we talked about, spotlighting residents of the month. So we need to figure out who's gonna own that, and then how that content's gonna be delivered to us. We need to think about the change agent was supposed to be the tool we use to really celebrate our staff. So that's gonna be identifying monthly, whether it's folks, here at the corporate office or out in the field that we highlight. So we're gonna have to think about that content. And then we go from there in terms of just overall migration. But for us right now, if we did nothing but migrate 100% of the existing content from the website, we'll at least get you what you have now. Now, there are some areas on the site where the content is somewhat dated, and we probably need to revisit that and have a conversation as well. So you can see that we're coming along. A lot of you probably see on the top of page 2, everything that you're seeing in terms of our current state of redesign in the test environment. Our design team is scheduled to have that updated by tomorrow. So if you go to the link that we've sent, you should see updates and see this is kind of dynamic and changing as we go. A lot of these photos right now are placeholders, So we may keep this piece and get the high-res version on it, but especially some of the other pieces that reflect our actual properties and the people living in those, we definitely need to change those. And if there are any existing photos anywhere of residents, that would be great as well. It might even be good to speak to some of these property presidents and ask them to curate some of that and just get it back to us, and then we can dig through that and see what's appropriate. Obviously, this is the priority for us, and when you speak in terms of, Commissioner Anthony, the branding, this website has taken some time because the birth of a website redesign was at least 2 directors ago. And
They come and go so fast.
yeah, and so the site map in terms of priority changed a couple of times. The design changed a couple of times. And so now we've landed here, Director Benedicto. But this was still just step 1. When we talk about a branding narrative, we want to get your tool where people can visit up and going. But then the question becomes, how does that live across your other public-facing components, your social media? We also talked about building out a marketing initiative and PR initiative that allows us to be more proactive in sharing our success stories. That was going to be in a robust PR activity that would include maybe even developing electronic newsletter that goes out more frequency. Newsletter is not necessarily designed to speak to our residents because they can go to the website, but it is designed to speak to our other stakeholders and partners throughout the city and throughout the country. So we talked about that, and then we've also discussed how do we want to start prioritizing our success outcomes, and then how are we building a PR strategy that allows us to push that out to the marketplace. Currently, right now, that's driven a lot, Director Benedicto, by if there's a groundbreaking or if there's a partnership with across the street at City Hall, or if in the event CHAC is doing something. So we need to look at how do we own our own narrative for MHA. So we'll, once we get the site standing and we move from there, we'll revisit, Commissioner Anthony, what's feasible in terms of a full communication strategy after the site is up, and what makes sense fiscally and what makes sense in terms of priorities of Director Benedicto.
You know, again, we've been talking about branding, the website, the launch, and several other components for more than 3 years. So at some point, we need to put a pin on this
Yes, ma'am.
as a time frame when all of this needs to happen.
Yes, ma'am.
And since all of 2022 has been dealt with the restructuring of the agency, this needs to be able to launch before the first of the year.
Well, the site will be done well before then. We
Yeah,
hope to
yeah.
have the site done within the next maybe 3 weeks. Then we'll go into beta testing, which means we know that there still could be some gremlins, some digital hiccups, but it should be ready. It is our plan to have the site ready to go live early, worst case scenario, early October. Best case scenario, mid-September. Some of the hiccups are going to be content, but what we can do in some of those situations, we just don't make those links live until we get that content, and we rock and roll from there. But in terms of early next year, we'll probably need to get a planning stage and have some conversation with you as commissioners, and then Director Benedicto in terms of identifying what makes sense, again, directionally in terms of your priorities, what are priorities of the board, and then fiscally how you want to approach that. But we do need to start telling our story.
Mm-hmm.
We need to drive people to learn more about us and our handy-dandy new tool. We need to understand that we have a diverse and robust customer base, so some folks are gonna read a snail mail newsletter that falls in their mailbox. Some people are gonna go to our website. Some people will engage us via social media, and some people will come out to our events. So we need to have a 360 approach to how we own our story. And the overall where that content is gonna come from is from the various functional groups in the organization. So is there any success stories that we can talk about Section 8? Are there any success stories we can talk in other functional groups of the organization that we want to go out there and tell stories? We know that it's, the media loves the sexy, groundbreaking events when you're talking about erecting brick and mortar homes, but there are a lot of things we do. For example, Director Benedicto, you were just talking about how the brand became the hero in helping displace folks from the property that we don't own to get vouchers and continue to have housing. That's a great story that we could put in a press release and how we're impacting the lives of folks and push that out. And then people understand that's not an exception, that's the rule here at MHA in driving the press to learn more. Oftentimes we get press chairman that engages as they're looking for something meaty to try to talk about what we may not be doing right. But there are a lot of things that we're doing well, and we need to tell those stories. So you're spot on, Commissioner Anthony, in terms of brand story. How do we do that? Are there any additional questions about the website or any other priorities? Okay, if not, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Man, yeah.
All right, yes, sir, thank you so much.
All right, Director Benedicto.
All right, got a lot of resolutions. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, think about 6 of them. Chairman, I don't know how you want to handle it, but one at a time, or?
Yeah, let's just go down the line.
Okay, I'll go down the line. So resolution 6834, authorizing the executive director to enter into a contractual agreement with Dawn Realty and Associates for real estate and broker services. Resolution 6835, authorizing a Section 8 project-based voucher program housing assistance payment contract for 289 units at Pinnacle Place. Resolution 6836, authorizing the procurement manager position be amended to report directly to the executive director. Resolution number 6837, authorizing an established pay range for the housing specialist position at MHA. Resolution 6838, approving the executive administrator position, job description and job title. Resolution 6839, authorizing the ban of Big Country Chateau Apartments from the Section 8 program for 1 year. Resolution 6840, authorizing the executive director to enter into an agreement with GoTo for voice over IP, phone, and communication services.
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
6835, is that the combination of Pinnacle and Pittaway?
That's just Pinnacle. We've already taken care of Petaway.
I didn't know we went to 289.
Yeah, Pinnacle. Yeah, that's what he said right off the top, when we first did the first resolution. And remember, we tabled this one because we were trying to
Okay,
get some
so
more
what did
questions.
we do with, I'm sorry, I'm thinking that the total, the whole total was 289.
Right.
So we did, how much at Pittaway?
111.
111, right.
And we're doing 289.
And that's where we stopped the buck. That's it.
So that's 400, that's 400.
Mm-hmm. We stopped the buck. That's it. Won't be no more.
Need a motion?
Oh, not yet. Hold on. Got that one. Okay, got it. That's good.
Is there any reason we said that on the
Right.
6839 1 year for that thing? I mean,
Can't be
We
less,
talking about-
cannot, okay.
can't be less than 1 year. It can be more, but it can't be less
After that
than.
1 year, we have to revisit it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, what's your pleasure?
Okay.
Mo-
Okay, I move that we approve resolution 6834, resolution 6835, resolution 6836, resolution 6837, resolution 6838, and resolution 6839, and resolution 6840.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second for the adoption of resolution 22-08-6834 through resolution 2022-08-6840. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none. Resolution passes. Do I need to go into executive session?
No.
Then motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Then moved and properly second that we adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, none. We are adjourned.
I'll go to some of these, case at your location,
Disaster recovery plan.
water,
Oh,
gas,
okay, yeah.
and fire,